All right, and welcome in, everybody. Hope you all are having a fantastic, fantabulous, awesome freaking day. My name is Garrett Shoemake, and this is the Shoemake Take, and today we head further out west into beautiful San Francisco to talk about the San Francisco 49ers and how I think they're going to do in 2025. Interesting tidbit before we start. This is my second time recording this video. The first one, I simply was not proud of it. I was missing key elements in my script. I had multiple brain blips where it was just multiple seconds of me going, oh my God, I forgot this, I forgot that. And overall, I was just not proud of it. I also had a Brock Purdy rant that lasted way too long. We're going to be talking about Brock Purdy once we get to his contract extension, but I'm not going to make it as long as 10 minutes, although I do not guarantee that it won't be that. If it ends up being that again, I sincerely apologize. But everything is going to be in timestamp, so if you want to go ahead and move on to the next segment and talking about like free agency and whatnot as the rant's going on, if I'm getting too much, then go ahead and just skip through it. I really don't care. I understand that you guys are here for the whole breakdown, not just for me to rant about Brock Purdy. I made a whole video ranting about Brock Purdy, so if you guys want to see that video, go ahead and check it out. But with that being said, if you guys want to go ahead and jump into the discussion, the timestamp is in the video description. So if you want to just skip all the mumbo jumbo of how this series works, then knock yourself out. I won't be mad at you. So for those of you that do know or do not know how the series works and you guys want to know, here is what we're going to be breaking down. We're going to recap 2024 very briefly. We're going to look at each team's record and what happened, and then we'll go into the offseason, breaking down every notable offseason news or the most notable offseason news. I'd say the biggest news stories that happened during each team's offseason. And then we will get into free agency. We'll go over all who they added, who each team lost. Then we'll get into the draft and break that down pick by pick. That's going to be really exciting, especially for the 49ers. And then after that, we will go into the schedule, go game by game, breaking it down, looking at where things are easy, where things are tough, looking at the most important matchups each team has. And then after that, I will kind of give you guys my thoughts on how I feel about the team in 2025. Do I think each team is good, bad, mid? Look at some strengths, look at some weaknesses positionally, and then we'll break it all down or wrap it up, with my official record prediction and then looking at some storylines that I will be looking for in 2025. So with that being said, let's talk about the 49ers and break down their season because this is going to be an interesting one for San Francisco because looking at what happened in 2024, they went 6-11. And pretty much injuries decimated this team, and it was an outright disaster in San Francisco. The offense was not up to par. Defense was bad. Special teams, especially the kicker, Jake Moody, was bad last year. There was a lot of things that just did not go the 49ers' way, regardless of the injuries. This team on the field was just not very good in 2024. And it reminds me a lot of what happened in 2020. If you guys remember 2019, the Chiefs and 49ers, coincidentally enough, that's what happened the year before last in 2023, played in the Super Bowl. And the year after, 49ers got hurt a whole bunch, won 6 games, missed the playoffs. The same thing is happening now. So you would think that the history would repeat itself where in 2021, was it right? Yeah, 2021, the 49ers bounced back and they were in the NFC Championship. But, right, were they in the NFC Championship in 2021? Pretty sure they were. I could be wrong on that, but I'm not going to think about it too hard. But this year, I don't think history repeats itself very much. But that being said, we're getting a little too far ahead of ourselves. We're going to talk about why that's the case once we get to it. But for right now, let's talk about the offseason and what happened for San Francisco, the big notable moves. Well, the first one was that they fired defensive coordinator, as I knock over my script. They fired defensive coordinator Nick Sorensen, and they brought back Robert Saleh, the former Jets head coach, was their defensive coordinator before going to the Jets, so reuniting with his team in San Francisco. This is a fantastic move. One thing about Nick Sorensen is that he was part of the problem in San Francisco. Regardless of all the injured players and all this and whatnot, the scheme was just obviously not working. Players were not executing. The defense did not look any better from week 1 to week 18. And regardless of what your players and injuries look like, that is a coaching issue. Even if you look at film, you should be able to see at least somewhere, there should be improvements somewhere. And for the 49ers, there was not that much at all to say really anywhere. So in that situation, like I said, that's a coaching problem. Got to get rid of Nick Sorensen. Is it partially unfair? Sure, would things have been better if everybody was healthy? Sure. But bottom line is things did not get better, and the defensive coordinator had a role to play in that. So he got canned. He got fired. And so now they brought back Robert Saleh, who is very experienced in his role as defensive coordinator and also has had a lot of success in that role. So you think him being back would be a big boost to this defense, and just in terms of cohesion and consistency, that enough should be noticeable. That should be evident. And I expect that out of Robert Saleh because he's done it with some of the best defenses in the league. I expect a lot out of him, and I'm glad that they brought him back. They desperately need it. So great move there. And then the next move was giving Brock Purdy his big $265 million contract extension, making him one of the top 10 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. Don't remember the specific number at which he was paid, or like if it's like 10th, 9th, 8th highest paid quarterback. I don't remember. I think it's like 8th or 7th, I think. But with that being said, Brock Purdy is overpaid. It was a massive overpay. And here's the deal. I made a whole video on it when he first got paid, breaking the whole thing down. So I'm just going to try and reiterate what I said in that video. So the big reason why I thought Brock Purdy was overpaid was because of the season he had last year in 2024. Brock Purdy was not that good. And when I made that claim, a lot of people came back at me and was like, well, the defense was bad. The special team was bad. And I was like, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, everything else was bad. And it's important to acknowledge that because it is a team sport. You win and you lose as a team. But was specifically talking about Brock Purdy and the role he had to play because regardless of what you think, Brock Purdy wasn't innocent. Now, let me preface by saying this. Do I expect Brock Purdy to elevate his team? And is Brock Purdy bad because he couldn't elevate his team? No. There's only 3 quarterbacks in the NFL that can elevate their team and play well no matter what the heck is going on around them. That is Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. Not even Joe Burrow because his team is the playoffs. That's a hot take, but that's one that has at least some type of an argument to it compared to the other 3. So Brock Purdy, I'm not going to judge Brock Purdy because he couldn't elevate his team when the team was injured around him and completely decimated. That enough? Yeah, no, I'm not blaming Brock Purdy for that. We can't blame Brock Purdy for that because, like I said, only 3 quarterbacks in the NFL in that situation would be able to perform well. So you can't grade him based on that. What I can grade Brock Purdy on is looking at the tape and looking at the horrible decisions he made in games. If you go look at numerous games, I pointed out specific games to you in that video, Brock Purdy video, where numerous times he was late on passes where they were incomplete or picked off, had multiple interceptions to receivers that were not open, overthrown. He made a lot of mistakes. And sure, could you make the argument that the offensive line was horrible? Yes. Receivers were injured all the time. Yes, that plays a role in that. Sure, I agree. But the thing is, I'm sorry, if the quarterback makes a bad decision and something is not there and he's throwing right to a defender, which happened multiple times, mind you, in critical moments, like 3rd down, late in the 4th quarter when the 49ers are trying to come back or they have a lead, multiple times in critical situations, Brock Purdy made bad decisions. No matter how you spin it, I'm going to blame the guy that makes the decision throwing the football. I get it that everything else around him was really not that good, and I know that affects decision making. It's a team sport, but also he ultimately made that choice. He made the choice. I mean, it's not like all of a sudden because everything else is bad around him, we're gonna all of a sudden it's okay, Brock. It's okay, Brock. You made a horrible decision. You threw it right to that linebacker staring at you right over the middle of the field, but your offensive lineman got pushed back a couple extra feet. That's not your fault. No, it is your fault. If you're going to throw right to a defender right in your face, whether you see him or not, that is on you. Here's the thing with quarterbacks in this discussion. And this is what really annoys me with discussing if quarterbacks are good or not. If you make a bad decision and if you're a good quarterback and you make a bad decision, fine. If you're a bad quarterback and you make a bad decision, you're garbage. But in Brock Purdy's situation, whenever the team around him was great and he played great, everyone was like, oh, Brock Purdy's carried by a great team. But then Brock Purdy on a bad team played bad and everyone's like, oh, Brock Purdy needs more help. Well, yeah, both of those can be somewhat true. An argument can be made for both. But also, Brock Purdy made bad decisions. And one thing I'm going to tell you is go watch the film. Every single play that I put in the Brock Purdy clip about him being overpaid and why, I made a social media clip about it. And in that clip, I had multiple cut-ups on the TV broadcast of Brock Purdy throwing bad interceptions. And they were all bad. I looked back at the tape on all of them, and all of them were objectively bad decisions. One thing I'm telling you, go watch the film. TV broadcast, stats lie all the time. 100% of the time, they're going to lie somewhere. The film does not lie. I watched the tape. I saw it myself with my own two eyes. He made a lot of horrible decisions late in games. That is on Brock Purdy. I'm not saying that we need to put all the blame on Brock Purdy, but also we have to acknowledge that he played a big role in the 49ers being bad last year. He's not all of a sudden excluded from blame. No, he also has a role to play. If the team wins and loses as a team, all the players take a piece of blame pie. That is only fair. If they lose as a team, that means they all take blame for the role that they played in the team losing 11 games. That's the point I'm trying to make. But also, the other part of this conversation is that it continues to set a horrible precedent that mostly bad NFL teams are setting for themselves and for the quarterback market. Now, I'm not saying that the best quarterbacks in the league don't deserve the money that they're making. They most absolutely deserve it. Like Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, they deserve all their money. But guys like Dak Prescott, guys like Deshaun Watson, who started the whole thing in the first place, Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, they have not done enough to me to justify top 10 quarterback money. Are they absolute superstars? No, they're not. Is Trevor Lawrence and Jordan Love superstars? No, at best, they are above average. Jordan Love is slightly above average. Trevor Lawrence is just straight up mid at best, and you will not convince me otherwise. That's something I have made obvious numerous times on this show. Trevor Lawrence absolutely does not deserve the contract that he got. After having one half of a good season, are you kidding me? No, absolutely not. And then Dak Prescott, $60 million a year. Highest paid quarterback in the NFL, and how many playoff wins do you have? 1, 2, that's it? In a 10-year career, are you kidding me? That's not all on Dak Prescott, no. But at the same time, you cannot pay top-tier quarterback money for average to below average quarterback play. You cannot set that precedent. You cannot, because the teams that have good quarterbacks, guess what they have to do now? They have to absolutely break the bank and straggle themselves with cap to where they have almost no money left to spend on quality free agents. Why do you think this entire conversation of get a young quarterback on a rookie contract and build everything you can around him? That's because once you pay the quarterback, you don't have the money to bring in high quality free agents and continue building out your roster as good as you could before. So then what happens? Then you have to hit on your draft picks. The margin for error gets a lot thinner, and this is where teams break. This is where the best teams over the years that have been good for a couple years, had stacked rosters, the next couple years later, they break and they're back to the bottom all over again because it is hard when you have a quarterback and have multiple players, in this case for the 49ers, on top tier contracts. And so with Brock Purdy being there now, after the year that he had, which I'm sorry, you cannot reward that after the year that he had. And so now for the 49ers, their margin for error is literally zero. Zero. They have no more margin for error. They don't have the money to bring in high-quality free agents, and they don't have the money to continue paying their top players. That's why they lost so many important players on defense in free agency, because they can't afford to pay them, because they already have paid numerous players top-tier contracts. And Brock Purdy is just a symptom of that problem, specifically for San Francisco. So what happens? Now you have no option. You have to do well in the draft. Not just do well, you have to hit in the draft every single year with at least 3 of your picks. You got to hit in the draft often every single year, and that is hard to do. That's not an exact science, as we all know. So for the 49ers, if they cannot hit on their draft picks plentifully in these next few years and really retool this roster to get it back to where it was these past couple of years, then they're going to be screwed. And what's going to happen? The team's not going to be as good. And what happened when the team was not as good? Brock Purdy was also not as good. Big surprise. A quarterback that can't elevate his team, which I'm not blaming him for, is not going to be as good because they can't get the right help around him. And the problems are already starting to show because Brandon Ayuk gave him a big contract. He's still hurt for some reason. Ricky Pearsall has his injury issues. Juwan Jennings is dealing with injury issues. George Kittle can't always stay healthy. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? The 49ers, this is why they have zero margin for error. Because if they cannot hit in the draft really, really well, they're going to be screwed. Because they don't got the money to pay any more players to bring in high-quality free agents. They are strapped for cash. So if they don't hit their draft picks, their roster is going to get worse. The team's going to get worse. Brock Purdy inevitably is also going to play worse because a quarterback in a bad situation is going to probably play bad. And then guess what's going to happen? John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are going to get canned. They're going to get fired. All because they're paying a whole bunch of players. And for Brock Purdy, after the year that he had, I'm sorry, you cannot reward that. You cannot pay top-tier quarterback money for an average to above average quarterback. And he played great his first 2 years, but 2024 really put a damper on that for me. So the rant probably ended up being 10 minutes long. I don't know how long I've been talking for about this, but I am done. The conversation is over. I've made my case. I've made my bed. I am now going to sleep in it. Nice, tight, wrapped up like a burrito. So that being said, let's continue with the offseason, shall we? So let's look at free agency and let's keep the ball moving. Looking at what they added. So they re-signed a lot of their depth players for like 1 year, cheap 2-year deals just to try and retain the depth, which is going to be a big issue in 2026 when we talk about their storylines. But they brought in quarterback Mac Jones to be a backup, young quarterback, has some talent, fine by me, nothing serious there. They brought in wide receiver Demarcus Robinson, and originally when I first made this video, I talked about how I like this move, and I still like the move. He's solid, he's reliable, and quite frankly, there's not a lot of that in the 49ers wide receiver room. And so bringing him in is important, but he is going to be suspended for the first 3 or 4 games. I don't remember why that is. So he's not going to be useful for September, which is going to hurt them, which is why they recently traded for Sky Moore from Kansas City. And that's fine. I'm excited to see how he gets used because I believe an offensive mind like Kyle Shanahan could probably use him in creative ways, and probably we could see some cool things from Sky Moore. But so far, he has not fared well in Kansas City at all, and so that's not very exciting. The youth and the skill set could be interesting compared with Kyle Shanahan, like I said, but on the field, Sky Moore simply has not panned out. And so if that's going to be one of your players early on in the year that's going to be taking significant snaps for you, that's a big warning sign. That's very concerning because you can't, I don't know if Sky Moore's a guy you can rely on. I get it, you need depth and you need guys that can play, that are healthy, but Sky Moore, I really don't know about this. We'll see. I mean, I could always be wrong, but this move doesn't really excite me, but I understand why they had to do it. I mean, their wide receiver room is hurt right now in pretty bad shape, so they need guys that can play. And Sky Moore, well, can he play? I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see how the 49ers try to use him. And then you look at the tight ends. They brought in Luke Farrell and Ross Dwelly to bring in some depth. And then they brought in tackles Andre Dillard and Nicholas Petit-Frere. I saw that Andre Dillard was on IR. I don't remember when that happened, but I saw it on the ESPN's depth chart, and I was like, that's unfortunate. But bringing in Andre Dillard and Nicholas Petit-Frere, especially Nicholas Petit-Frere, I'm sorry, 49ers, this is a dumb move. It's straight up dumb. Coming from a Titans fan, Nicholas Petit-Frere in 2024 was objectively the worst tackle, left tackle or right tackle, the worst offensive tackle in the NFL. Stats show that. Film shows that. And like I said, as a religiously devout Titans fan, I can tell you with confidence that Nicholas Petit-Frere, love the guy, but on the field, he is garbage. So I don't know why you'd want to bring that into your locker room on the field, because the 49ers offensive line was not that good last year. And while I believe their parts are better than their sum right now, if one or two of these guys goes down, you do not want Nicholas Petit-Frere playing games for you. He was more than just a liability. He didn't even look like he belonged on an NFL football field last year. So that doesn't excite me. And if he is on the field for the 49ers, I will be on my knees praying to God that Brock Purdy doesn't get smacked and absolutely landing on his face like Will Levis did in week 3, because Nicholas Petit-Frere can't block nobody to save his life. But all disrespect aside, if Nicholas Petit-Frere for some reason ever sees this, I am very sorry. I like you as a person. You're a cool dude, but on the field, you're just not that good. Sorry. But that being said, looking at the additions on defense, you look at Chaz Surratt and Luke Gifford. These are guys that are going to provide depth at linebacker. They should be at least. Luke Gifford is slated to be a starter. No, Luke Gifford is a special teams only player, also coming from Tennessee. I can tell you that with confidence. But also, they brought in Trey Brown and Fabian Moreau. These are solid depth corners. I like these two moves. They brought in safety Jason Pinnock, fine, and brought in other safeties like Siren Neal and Richie Grant. So they brought in a lot of solid depth into their secondary, which, considering that it also dealt with some injuries last year, they also lost depth, especially at corner. Fine by me to bring in guys like this that can help just solidify the group and make sure that the secondary is not a complete liability compared to what it was mostly last year. So now we look at the losses, and at quarterback, they lost Brendan Allen and Josh Dobbs, 2 veterans. That sucks. I wish you would have kept one of these veterans just so you have another teacher and another voice, like secondary coach, if you will, in Brock Purdy's corner, because there's some things that backup quarterbacks, veteran quarterbacks, can teach to a young quarterback like Brock Purdy that a head coach can't. Like the speak, the dynamic is different, and so having that extra guy in your corner, like another quarterback, that's very helpful. So to see them lose both veterans, that sucks. And then they lost running back Jordan Mason, who they traded away to San Francisco. They traded away to Minnesota, excuse me. But this one, I really don't like this. I get that Jordan Mason also dealt with his injuries last year, but he started off the year really, really good. And quite frankly, he really helped keep this team afloat early in the year because of how good he was performing. He was top 5 in rushing yards throughout the first half of the year before Christian McCaffrey came back and then immediately got hurt again. So losing that depth stinks. So I'm not excited about that. And they also lost Elijah Mitchell, who was fine depth. I mean, he's not very significant for me. And then they traded away Deebo Samuel, which this was a move that was going to happen eventually. Both sides were not happy with each other. Deebo Samuel really has not been happy. And quite frankly, he has been mediocre these past couple years in San Francisco. And at this point, like I said, it was inevitable. It was going to happen at some point. So seeing it happen, Washington gets a new weapon, which we'll see what happens, I guess. But for the 49ers, they got rid of someone that they clearly could not get along. They did not want to be with each other anymore. So it sucks losing Deebo Samuel because most of the time, I mean, he is a solid player. I mean, he's not bad. So that stinks. And considering that the wide receiver room in San Francisco is broken for the most part, that sucks. But I understand why it needed to happen. And they lost a couple. They also tied in Eric Saubert. Fine, he went to Seattle, actually. And then they lost Jalen Moore, who was their backup tackle, went to Kansas City. He's going to compete for the starting left tackle job. And then guard Aaron Banks to Green Bay. So they lost the starting offensive lineman, lost a depth offensive lineman here. And so that is tough. That is very tough. And for an offensive line that was a problem last year for San Francisco, that is not great. But then you look on the defensive side, and things are just much, much worse. I mean, starting on the defensive line, they lost Javon Hargraves and Malik Collins. Malik Collins, he's a good player, went to Cleveland. And then Javon Hargrave, they let him go after giving him a big contract. He has just not worked out since he left Philly and came to San Francisco. That was a move that just did not work out. That's unfortunate. So that's a net loss for the 49ers. But Javon Hargrave, I mean, he is still a starter in this league, if you want to say. He's a starter, and it's only a couple years ago where he was really, really good. And so he goes to Minnesota, where their defensive line looks very, 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 very stacked. So I expect Javon Hargrave to play good over there. So losing that for San Francisco stinks, but he didn't really do a whole lot for them. So it's not like a big, horrible loss compared to the other guys like Leonard Floyd. Leonard Floyd was solid for them. He was good, and losing that veteran presence in the room does stink. I mean, I know Nick Bosa is a veteran at this point, but I mean, he's still productive even in his 30s. He's a guy you want to have on your team. I mean, he's not bad at all. I would like to have Leonard Floyd on the Titans, for example. He would be a good addition. But he goes to I keep saying San Francisco. He goes to Atlanta to be the veteran leader in that edge group who has James Pierce and Jalen Walker now, which is exciting for them. So that stinks. But the next one that's really hurtful is Dre Greenlaw. This is one of the most hurtful ones because Dre Greenlaw, when he's healthy, is one of the best linebackers in the NFL. He's a top 10 linebacker in my opinion. And so he goes to Denver, signs a 3-year deal over there, and he's going to help lock down that linebacker room after they lost Cody Barton in free agency, who was one of their top guys. But losing Dre Greenlaw, that sucks. And that's a prime example of you got so many players paid, and you already paid Fred Warner. It's not smart to pay top dollar for 2 players on that play in the same position. It's just not smart. And so they couldn't afford to pay Drake Greenlaw, so they had to let him walk. It's a product of what the 49ers are right now as a team. And then they lost Charvarius Ward. Same thing, good corner, but they already paid Jamondre Lenore. Can't pay another one really good money. Sorry. And they also lost some solid depth in Isaac Iadom and Rock Ya-Sin, which that's unfortunate, but they brought in some depth to replace them, so their losses aren't as hurtful. And then the other big loss is safety Talanoa Hufanga, second team All-Pro. Well, they don't have anybody paid at the safety spot. They already have a whole bunch of players locked up under big contracts. Can't afford to pay a big contract to another really good football player. So he leaves. He also followed Dre Greenlaw to Denver, so they'll be reunited over there. That's exciting. But losing Talanoa Hufanga, that sucks. Losing Dre Greenlaw, that sucks. Charvarius Ward, that sucks. Those 3 players were pivotal pieces for this 49ers defense, and they are gone because they just don't have the money to pay them. So, like I said, this is a product of where the 49ers are right now with all the players they have locked under big-time contracts. So, I said earlier that the 49ers have 0 margin for error, and so they need to hit on their draft picks. Well, good news, this draft class looks very promising. I really like this draft class, and they went for positions and went for players to fill the voids that they lost. I really like this. They are set out on a mission to figure out what's wrong with this team and fix it. So the process I can appreciate. Starting with first round pick Mykel Williams, I don't know why I thought about Mykel Walker. I'm sorry. Mykel Williams out of Georgia, and he fits the bill for a 49ers edge rusher. He is big, he is physical, he is strong and powerful, but he's not just big, strong, and powerful. He has great length. He is a really strong pass rusher, has a lot of tools in his belt, whether it's a rip, a swim, a bull rush. He can do all of it. Also in the run game, he's great at setting the edge. He anchors well, throws tight ends to the dirt in run plays. So, I mean, Mykel Williams, I don't know why I'm saying McCall, oh my gosh. But Mykel Williams fits the bill, like I said, for what the 49ers are looking for in an edge rusher. Very talented. He's also very tough and resilient. Dealt with a really bad ankle injury in 2024 and fought through it for most of the year. So that's really positive to see in terms of effort. So Mykel Williams is a really exciting player. I can't wait to see him on the field with Nick Bosa. They should be, maybe not this year, but in a couple years, they should be wrecking havoc, which I'm excited for that. The 49ers need that. They need a lot of juice on their defensive line. They need more pass rush outside of Nick Bosa, and I think Mykel Williams can give them that. But they went into the interior on their defensive line in the second round, picking Texas defensive tackle Big Alfred Collins. Big, massive, outstanding length, very versatile. He is going to replace the role that Javon Hargrave had, and the only thing about Alfred Collins is that he's not just going to do that. He's not just going to be a run stuffer, which he is good at because he pushes the pile, he uses his hands, shoots his hands, got great punch, splits double teams, but he's also very versatile. He can line up and down the defensive line, whether it's 0 technique, 1 technique, 3 technique. He can do all of it, but the big thing is he has pass rush upside. The way he uses his hands is exciting, and if the 49ers can develop Alfred Collins and him develop as a pass rusher, and you get pressure not just from your edges but from the interior, which is really a lot worse for a quarterback to deal with than edge rushers, that could be really impactful for this 49ers defensive line and overall helping the rest of this defense. So Alfred Collins has the chance to be a really good football player in this position that he's going to be in. I'm excited for him. And out of a stacked defensive tackle class, especially at the top, while Alfred Collins didn't go in the first round compared to guys like Derek Harmon, Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, Mason Graham, he has enough on tape. I mean, he is in that conversation. I mean, he wasn't a first-round pick at all, but here's a reason why he was a solid, decently high second-round pick, because he is that good. He is a really good defensive tackle and definitely one of the better parts of Texas's defensive line last year. So bringing him in, fantastic. And then they go for Dre Greenlaw's replacement in the third round with linebacker Nick Martin. A little bit undersized, but great speed, runs sideline to sideline, makes plays in space, high effort, high intensity, getting downhill. He's like a hammerhead shark. He is exactly what the 49ers will need in a couple of years as he develops and becomes that next starting linebacker next to Fred Warner. I think he can play that role really well, fill in for what Dre Greenlaw did. That's what they're going to bring him in here to do. So I really do like this pick a lot. And like I said, with this draft class, they went after positions of need, and specifically with positions that they lost that were important. And so seeing them address these positions early and often is really good. It's good process. And then they drafted corner Upton Stout in the third round. Little undersized. He's 5'9". I'm 5'8". So I got to root for the guy because us short guys got to stand together. We got to stand together. You know what I'm saying? But despite his small size, he doesn't have great speed. He runs a 4.4, which is good, not elite, but he has solid technique. He shadows receivers well. He reads the quarterback's eyes. He understands what the timing to break up passes, closes well. He does a lot of the small things right. And along with that, he's smart on film. That's really good stuff. And so despite the fact that he's not the right size, like I said, he's undersized, he has solid technique to make up for it, which is very positive. But the big thing I really like about Upton Stout is that he is a very willingly aggressive player. He is not afraid to get in the backfield and tackle a running back. He is not afraid to make hard tackles. He is high effort. And let me tell you something. I don't care how big you are, how small you are. If you can tackle in the NFL like Upton Stout can, you will always have a job in the National Football League, straight up. So Upton Stout has plenty of upside. His technique is good, and him being such a willing tackler definitely played a role in him being a third-round pick. And he's also slated to be a starter in the nickel for the 49ers so far this year, according to ESPN's depth chart. So that is exciting for him. Wishing him the best. Like I said, us short guys, we got to stick together. So continuing on, they went back to the interior with defensive tackle C.J. West, a guy that is similar to Poona Ford. That was his pro comp because he has a low center of gravity, but is very, very powerful with his hands. Very strong punch. And the thing, like I mentioned with Poona Ford, when I talked about him when he went to the Rams, which you guys are going to see after this, which I don't know why I'm talking about it now. I guess because I already re-recorded it, I already recorded it and accidentally deleted it, so my brain is kind of all over the place with that. But the Rams, they brought in Poona Ford, and what I like about Poona Ford is he has strong punch, and even though he's a little bit shorter, he is a really annoying player to go up against because of this blend of size, of lack of height, but strength, length, and power. And C.J. West fits that similar mold. While his arms are not very long, he is a very willing, fiery player. Fires off the ball. I mentioned his great punch in close quarters. He is a surefire tackler, and he will be a valuable piece on this defensive line in a couple years in the rotation. He's going to be productive. He's going to be on the field, and I don't know how much he is as a rookie, but I'm excited for C.J. West along with Alfred Collins. These two guys in the interior defensive line could be very valuable pieces, and I like the upside that they bring. And then you look at Jordan Watkins in the fourth round, receiver out of Ole Miss, I think is where he came out of. The thing with Jordan Watkins is that while he's a little undersized, he fits the scheme really well for what the 49ers are trying to do. What does he do really well? He runs slants, attacks the middle of the field really well, catches the ball in traffic. He's very willing to do that. And what three traits does a receiver have to have in a Kyle Shanahan offense? Well, you got to be able to get open quickly. You got to be able to run quick game. You got to be able to attack the middle of the field, and you got to be willing to make catches in traffic. If you can do those three things, you will be a San Francisco 49er. You will fit in the scheme. So that's what Jordan Watkins was brought in to do. So I'm excited to see how he develops in that sense. And then they brought in Jordan James, the running back out of Oregon, with their first 5th round pick. This one I'm excited for, because if Bucky Irving last year was an indicator for how Oregon running backs are going to do in the NFL, then you should be over the moon about Jordan James. We'll have to see, but he is a very different player. He's opposite. While Bucky Irving is about speed and agility, Jordan James is about power. He has great contact balance, but he does have good enough quickness to get to the outside, make defenders miss. He's also really reliable in the passing game. And along with that, he's also reliable in pass protection. So you got a back that can kind of do it all. And the 49ers don't really have that. Christian McCaffrey isn't really relied on in pass protection. Isaac Guerrero is a little bit more of a shorter, speedier back. So bringing in like Jordan James is exciting. He rounds out a running back room that really has versatility everywhere. And you got guys that can do a little bit of everything. You have guys for specific situations. So one guy doesn't have to do a whole lot. And considering that Christian McCaffrey is coming back from a pretty major injury, you want a guy that can be a good relief pitcher. And I think Jordan James right now can be a good relief pitcher with upside to develop into something more later down the line. So I really like this pick. It's responsible. I like it a lot. Can't complain. And then they drafted Marquez Sigel in the 5th round out of Kansas State. Very productive player in his time there these previous 2 years. And what I like about Marquez Sigel is that he is an aggressive and willing player. So a common theme, kind of like Upton Stout, a little bit undersized, but very willing to make tackles. He is not afraid to do the dirty work. And if you can do the dirty work, you are going to have a job in the NFL. And while I don't know how quickly he gets on the field, you're going to probably see him a lot on special teams. And that's a guy you want on special teams. He fits the bill, and he is going to be a high contributing player there, I think. And so at the very least, you get a special teams ace in a guy like Marquez Sigel. And what he does on the field is enough for me to where, okay, he could develop into something later down the line. And then in the 7th round, they drafted Curtis Rourke, the Indiana quarterback. This one I don't really like, not because of Curtis Rourke, but because you already have Mac Jones, you have Brock Purdy. You really didn't need to draft another quarterback. You could have went for another position, maybe another wide receiver. Could have gone, maybe I guess you didn't really need tight end, another offensive lineman perhaps. So there could have been other directions I would have liked the 49ers to go. But Curtis Rourke, he isn't bad. He's a solid quarterback. He's just a pocket passer that has solid technique. He's going to be like another coach quarterback, if you will, throughout his career. So that's why they brought him in, because of that. Fine by me. I'm not going to complain too much about it. It is what it is. And then they drafted Connor Colby in the 7th round. Versatile, lined up and down the offensive line, played guard and tackle. And he has good size, good physical tools, really good in the run game, fits the scheme well. You want this guy to develop into at least being a solid depth offensive lineman, maybe something as a starter later down the line. The 49ers need depth on their offensive line. They need guys that can step in if guys go down, and Connor Colby could be a guy for them in a couple of years as he continues to develop. And then in the 7th round, again, they drafted wide receiver Junior Bergen. He was a former running back, switched to wide receiver in 2021, and the big thing is he wasn't super productive, but on tape, you can tell that his running back background translates. He's really good after the catch, and he's going to be competing on special teams, so that's where he's going to belong. He's going to be a long shot to make the roster, I think, but with some of these injuries, he's got a better chance than most, so he could make this roster on the back end if he worked hard enough. So in that case, I'll root for him. He definitely has worked really hard. Even though he's a 7th round pick, you cannot count a guy out like that. So that being said, their draft class was really promising. I like who they got. They addressed positions of serious need on this defense, and that's all you really want. Like I said, the margin for error for the 49ers now is 0. So they cannot afford to miss on these picks. So it's nice to see that they're going for guys that have high upside. Some of them don't even need to start right away, so they're not going to be rushed in their development. That's what you want. You need to be a draft and develop team, And a lot of these players are draft and develop, other than Michael Williams, who is going to be starting day one, I think. And I think he can be a solid contributor in his rookie year. So there is that. Overall, very encouraging draft. So is this team overall improved? No. Looking at what they lost in free agency, no, simply not. They're not as good as what they were last year on paper. So I cannot say in good faith that they are an improved football team. So now let's look at their schedule. Let's look at where that all shapes up to be. Because for the 49ers, their schedule, where is their schedule actually? Oh, it's right here. Sorry. I think they're going to have a solid start. It's very favorable. But you get into the middle of the year, things are going to get away from them at this point. So breaking it down, let's go week by week as I pull it up. Why is it not opening? Give me 2 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Okay. A couple extra seconds. All right, here we go. Week 1 is going to be on the road against the Seattle Seahawks. Honestly, I think I have the Seahawks sweeping San Francisco this year just because where the 49ers are and where the Seahawks are, they're in separate places right now. Although it would not surprise me if they split. That's obviously not out of the realm of possibility. But I think right now, I think Seahawks are just better. And starting out week 1 in Seattle, that does not bode well. I think they lose week 1. And then week 2, they're on the road against the New Orleans Saints. This is a game the 49ers will win. I don't think the Saints are very good. I think the 49ers will manhandle them a little bit and get some confidence. And then week 3, they're at home against the Arizona Cardinals. I have the 49ers and Cardinals splitting. So I think at home, give me the 49ers. Fine by me. So you win 2 straight, and then you're at home again against Jacksonville. This is another one that is very winnable. The Jaguars are going to be a mid-football team this year. They have a new head coach. They have a lot of newness on their offense, and they need to just get this offense rolling for them. And so early on, this offense might have some growing pains. So for a 49ers defense that has a lot of newness on its roster, here's a good test. Here's a good test to see how you do against an offense with a young offensive head coach and an admittedly talented quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. I don't like the guy as a football player, but he is talented. So that's objectively true in my opinion. So there's a lot of high upside there in theory. So that's going to be a good test. And then week 5 on the road against the Rams, I think the Rams sweep the 49ers this year as well. And looking at this offensive line, going against the Rams defensive line, that is a terrifying thought. Although if these receivers can be healthy, they could go toe-to-toe with these corners and help out this offensive line a little bit. But right now, I don't think the Rams lose to the 49ers at all this year. Give me a loss there. And then week 6 on the road against Tampa Bay. The 49ers have played the Bucs well over the past few years when they faced off. But right now, I think Tampa is just a better football team. They have a stronger offense, a stronger defense. I have a hard time thinking the 49ers are going to be able to beat Tampa Bay. So I have Tampa winning that one. And then week 7 on Sunday Night Football, first or second primetime game of the year. The Rams was Thursday Night Football. And then Sunday Night Football, you face the Atlanta Falcons at home. Another strong test for the 49ers, especially on the offensive side. How are they going to do against a rebuilding Falcons defense? And for the defensive side, for the 49ers, how do they fare against one of the most high-powered offenses in 2024? So that's going to be an interesting, that's going to be a good matchup. I think it's going to be a solid game. I don't think it's going to be bad at all. But right now, honestly, you know what? I think I might go San Francisco here. I think San Francisco might win just because they're not as lopsided compared to where the Falcons are, where their offense is great, but their defense is very suspect. The 49ers, their offense, if everything is healthy, should be solid at least, and their defense under Robert Saleh should be at least okay. That's like the bare minimum I'm expecting from the 49ers this year. And so if they meet that threshold, I think they can beat the Atlanta Falcons. That's very much possible. And then you go on the road against the Houston Texans. This one I think is a loss. Regardless of the Texans offense and its struggles, which the defensive line, if they do not do well against the Texans offensive line, that's going to be a problem. But the Texans, their defense is going to be really, really good this year. They're stacked up and across the board, and I think they just match up better against the 49ers offense right now. So, especially looking at the Texans pass rush with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. Holy crap, that's a terrifying thought. So, with that being said, I think that's a loss, but it's not going to be a big blowout. It's going to be a tough game, but we're at that point now where things are just going to start to get away from them a little bit, like I said, where week 9 at the Giants, they win this game, I think. I think they're a better team than the New York Giants in 2025. It's not a gimme win by any means, but it's one that I think the 49ers right now are better, so I can say with confidence that they will win. And then at home against the Rams, like I said earlier, I have them getting swept, so that is another loss. And then the Cardinals, I have them splitting, so if they won the first one, they got to lose the next one. So that's a 2-game skid. And then you're at home on Monday Night Football against the Carolina Panthers. This game is going to be a good one. This will be a good football game because these two teams are in similar boats right now. So for the Panthers, I want to see how well they do with their young core. I want to see the 49ers handle, especially on the offensive side, how do they handle this new look defense in Carolina? How does their defense handle all the young, talented weapons with Bryce Young? Oh my goodness. How do they handle all the young talent on the offensive side for Carolina with Bryce Young and all the young weapons that they have? So that's going to be a fun, interesting matchup. And then on the road against Cleveland, week 13, I think that's a win. The Cleveland Browns are going to suck. I have made that clear numerous times. So that's a win there. And then you got a week 14 bye week a little bit later. So you got a 4-game home stretch to finish out the year. And then you come off the bye week at home to face the Titans. And I think that is a win. While I think the Titans are going to be a better football team than what they are week 1, the Titans are still a rebuilding football team. I know this well because I am a Titans fan. And right now, I would say the 49ers are better. I think their offense is going to do a good job against the Titans defense. And the 49ers defense is going to create some problems for Cam Ward, I think. I would expect it to. But there is a realm where Tennessee's offense does fare well against the 49ers defense. But that's way far down the line. We'll have to see what happens. But regardless, I have the 49ers winning this game. And then you are on the road against the Colts on Monday Night Football. That's a win. I think the Colts suck. And after they named Daniel Jones to be their starting quarterback, I'm not any more excited about the Colts. And some people are like, oh, well, now they have more solid quarterback play with Daniel Jones. Are you kidding me? Daniel Jones is garbage. He is not a starting quarterback in the NFL. Having one good season under your belt does not make you a starting quarterback. When the other, excluding his rookie year, the other handful of years were just straight up not good at all. So I'm not confident in Daniel Jones. Sorry, Colts fans. And so that's why I have the 49ers winning, because they are a better football team. And Travis Ford is going against his former team. So that's an interesting storyline to look at. And then at home on Sunday Night Football, you face the Chicago Bears. Last year, the 49ers beat the brakes off of the Chicago Bears. This year, I think that ends differently. While I don't think the 49ers are going to get beat the crap out of by Chicago, I think Chicago is a better football team this year. I think that this defense is going to have a hard time challenging the Bears offense, which is loaded with talent. And this Bears defense, it should be formidable this year. With a better offense, this defense will finally get to show what it's truly capable of. And so it's going to be better. It's going to be strong. And for this 49ers offense, if they're healthy, will match up okay. But if they're hurt, then it's not going to bode well for them. And then week 18 at home against the Seahawks, you close. So you start with the Seattle Seahawks, end with Seattle Seahawks. I have them getting swept, like I said. So that is a loss. So with that being said, like I said, the schedule for the 49ers starts off okay, but in the middle of the road, middle of the year, things start to get a little more challenging. And then the home stretch is easier. It's definitely when all 4 games are winnable, if we're being honest. I mean, Titans, I think, will win. The Colts, I think they'll win. And then the Seahawks, that's a divisional game. That can always change. And the Bears, sure. I mean, the 49ers can beat the Bears. That's not impossible. So it's not like things are impossible at all for the 49ers in that sense. And so you look at their most important matchups, obviously the division, but also teams like Jacksonville, teams like Atlanta, Carolina, New York. These teams are going to either be in similar spots or they have interesting matchups with the 49ers specifically for specific reasons. So I want to see how they do against these teams. I want to see how they fare, especially even like with Chicago and that narrative in their rematch from last year. So these games I think are the most important because of how they match up. So it'll be interesting to see how they perform in these games because the 49ers are going to be under a big microscope, I think, in 2025 in general. So how do I feel about the 49ers? Well, here is how I feel. Originally, when I had first did the schedule prediction for the 49ers, I was higher on them. Well, this time around, I am not. Looking at their roster, things are still a little bit of an issue. They still are dealing with injuries right now. And right now, they are where the Eagles were in 2023. They are in a retooling phase, just not as good as what the Eagles were last year. So it's not going to be as good as I thought, but they're not going to be a bad football team in any means. They're still going to be better than what they were in 2024. And the 49ers just need a little bit of improvements. All they need, we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the storylines. But looking at their strengths, the biggest one to me is tight end. George Kittle is one of the best tight ends in the league. He stays mostly healthy, and as long as he's healthy, he is a reliable, dangerous threat for Brock Purdy, and that should remain the same in 2025. That should not change. And then edge rusher is a strength for this team. Nick Bosa, one of the best edge rushers in the NFL, he needs no introduction. And then Mykel Williams, I think, will be solid as a rookie, where you have an edge group that was very strong, very good. So I have these two positions being a strength of this team. But ultimately, unfortunately, that is it for the 49ers in terms of true strengths. Because the weaknesses, things are hefty. The first two, I have question marks. Running back and wide receiver. Running back, Christian McCaffrey. I don't know what to expect from Christian McCaffrey after coming off of a major injury that he dealt with last year. If Christian McCaffrey is what he is normally, he's a strength. The running back group is a strength of this team. I like Isaac Rendo. I like Jordan James. So if all three of these guys are healthy, the running back room is a strength. Same thing for wide receiver. If Ricky Pearsall, if Brandon Ayuk, and Jawan Jennings are all healthy, and then you add Demarcus Robinson coming back from suspension, Sky Moore if you want to count him, the receiver room would be a mostly strength of this team. But right now, because Christian McCaffrey is coming off of an injury, pretty major one, and right now the wide receiver core in San Francisco is pretty battered. Right now, I mean, I can't really say it's a strength until they are healthy and they perform well. Then right now I can't consider it a strength. But is it a weakness? We won't really know until we get to the season. But definitive weaknesses, the first one is offensive line. Offensive line, I was a little bit I was kind of wrong about them. When I reevaluated and re-recorded this video, as I'm re-recording this video, I did a little bit more research. And their individual parts have some things to like. I mean, obviously Trent Williams is a first ballot Hall of Famer. We don't need to talk about him. But then Ben Bartch is okay. I don't know. I can't remember if he was starting last year in front or behind Aaron Banks, or was Aaron Banks on the right side? I do not remember. From what I've seen, Ben Bartch is okay. He is formidable. And then Jake Brendel, while not really great in pass protection, he's a strong run blocker, so he has something good going for him. And then Dominic Pooney is going into his second year. He needs to step up if the 49ers offensive line is to be improved from last year. So that's a big thing for him and for the 49ers. And then Colton McKivitz, very underrated. Looking at some of his PFF grades and looking at some of his other advanced metrics, he really wasn't all that bad statistically. It was just the whole unit as a unit, I guess, was just poor. And so are we going to grade offensive linemen as a unit or their individual players? You got to grade them as a unit. And the unit last year was poor, barring significant improvement this year. Right now, it is still probably going to be a weakness for the 49ers. And then the next one is their defensive line. So defensive line for the 49ers, outside of edge, Nick Bosa and Mykel Williams, your two starting defensive interior guys are Kevin Givens and Jordan Elliott. That's not super exciting to me. I think Alfred Collins should be starting one of those spots, in my opinion. He has the upside. I know you don't want to rush him early, but if the interior is struggling in San Francisco, I would expect Alfred Collins to get more snaps earlier and faster. So we'll have to see that happen. We'll have to wait. but the interior of this defensive line does not excite me. And then number 2 is linebacker, or number 3, excuse me, is linebacker. Fred Warner is the best linebacker in the NFL. That's enough said from him. But outside of him, there is really nothing here. Nothing here at all. Right now on the depth chart, Luke Gifford is slated to be the starter next to Fred Warner. I don't know if that's true or not, but Luke Gifford is, like I said, is a special teams player. So if he's one of the top linebackers on the depth chart, that's not good. That means that the 49ers don't have good linebacker depth if a special teams only player is slated to be one of your starters. But then again, it's not 100% accurate, so I'm not going to fully get onto it like it is. But that is a massive warning sign. And then the last one is the secondary. Looking at De'Mondre Lennar, he's fine. He's hurt right now, so that's not great. And then Renardo Green is okay. But then Upton Stout, while I like him, he's a rookie. Rookie corners tend to struggle. And then the 2 new safeties, Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa, we'll have to see. They're unknowns at this point. Maybe one of them started last year. I don't fully remember. But right now, there is a little bit of newness to this secondary. And with issues at linebacker and issues on the defensive line, that will hurt this secondary. That happens. And so, in turn, I think with the weaknesses of the linebacker group overall and the interior defensive line overall, I think that's going to end up hurting the secondary. So that is also a weakness for the 49ers. So this team has a lot of ways to go before they can get back to what they were before. They got a lot of issues they got to fix, but a lot of that can be solved if Robert Saleh can turn things around and his impact can make a serious difference. But for right now, the 49ers, we'll have to see. I'm not high on the 49ers. I have them finishing 3rd in the division. I don't have them making the playoffs. Sorry. And my official record prediction for the 49ers is going to go on the screen right here. Bang, bang. 8-9. Originally, I had them going 10-7. Thought this was not a 10-win team. This is a 8-win team. This is a mid-football team. A team that is still dealing with injuries. A team that has numerous issues on defense still, even though they had a good draft class on the defensive side. This defense still has a ways to go in terms of retooling with bona fide good talent in there. So we're gonna need some time to see if their draft picks are worth it. But for right now, the defense is probably gonna have some problems in San Francisco. Is it gonna be great? No, not at all. And the offense, right now with Christian McCaffrey being a wild card and the wide receivers right now being hurt for San Francisco, I don't know I don't think this team is gonna be very good. They're not gonna be bad, but they're not gonna be good either. They're gonna be mid. They're gonna be average, but at the same time, it is better than last year, and that is really all they need. They just need to take a step forward in the right direction. Doesn't matter if it needs to be a big step or a small step. Just any step in the right direction would be so good for the 49ers and continuing to get back to where they were these past couple of years. And that is one of the biggest storylines for the 49ers, but we'll get to it. It's one of the last ones. We'll start with number 1. And the number 1, there's going to be some growing pains. With this roster in a retooling phase, you're going to see some issues with this team. It's going to happen. But along with this, with the roster, it doesn't get much better because they have a whole bunch of free agents, numerous starters heading free agency after 2025, which is something we'll look more at in 2026 once this season's over. But that's something to look at because the high turnover for the 49ers defense has not stopped yet. They're going to lose a lot of players to free agency. And with the money, them being strapped for cash, a lot of these guys aren't going to come back. So they're going to lose a lot of depth once more, probably even more depth than what they lost last year. So there's going to be some growing pains these next couple of years with the 49ers as they continue to rebuild their football team. And so I want people to expect that. I want people to be prepared for that. I want people to be disappointed when the 49ers don't live up to expectations like they did a couple of years ago. They are going to need time, so please be patient. But the second storyline is, will this defense ultimately look better? I think it does. Even though they're going to have their issues, I think they're going to be a better unit. Like I said, when I talked about Robert Saleh being brought back, he's going to bring cohesion. He's going to bring some consistency with this defense. And I am confident that the 49ers defense in week 18 will be a better unit than what they were in week 1. So I want to see that. That's what I'm expecting out of Robert Saleh. He's a great defensive mind, and so I'm hopeful he can make that happen. So I will be looking for that for San Francisco. And then number 3 is Brock Purdy. How does he perform after getting the new contract? Because at this point, there's no more, does Brock Purdy deserve the contract, this or that? No, he's gotten paid at this point. So now he has the top 10 quarterback money. Unfortunately, that means that we're going to have to be graded on a top 10 quarterback scale. And now here's where the disconnect comes in because Brock Purdy, I don't think is going to play like a top 10 quarterback in 2025. Do I think he's as bad as last year? No. The team overall should be a little bit better. And so in turn, Brock Purdy should be a little bit better. So the improvement would be fine, and he needs to have a bounce back year. And he doesn't need to be fantastic like he was these past couple of years. But if he can just cut down on the poor decisions and just be reliable, efficient like he has been, fine. That's all I really want to see out of Brock Purdy. But like I said, a lot of people are going to start grading him on the scale of his pay because he got the big contract. And if he's not lighting it up, some people are going to think that he is definitely overpaid like I do. But I'm not expecting a lot about Brock Purdy. I think he's just going to have a solid, efficient year and just and if he cuts down on the decisions and just plays clean football, I think that's all I need to see from Brock Purdy where, okay, I think things are going to work themselves out. There's not a high bar to hit. So I really don't have a lot of issues with Brock Purdy going in after 2025, I don't think. I don't think I will. I should put it like that. And so, number 4, the other big storyline, Jake Moody needs to bounce back. Now, unlike Brock Purdy and this defense, Jake Moody can't just be a little bit better and just be fine. No, he needs to get back to what he did as a rookie where he was fantastic. Because kickers, they have short leashes. You can be one of the best kickers in the NFL statistically, and you have a couple bad years, and you are out of there. So Jake Moody is fighting for his job. He's fighting potentially for his career right now, looking at how bad he was last year in San Francisco. So he needs to get right. He needs to get back on track. Because if he doesn't, then he is going to be cut, and that's not going to look good on him. And so the second to last storyline is health. Right now, things aren't looking great in San Francisco. But good God, please, can the 49ers just get healthy and stay healthy? Again, the 49ers have zero margin for error. This is not the time with all the depth that they lost. Now is not the time to have an injury bug. Last year, it was a problem, and this was a Super Bowl roster a year ago. Even in 2024, looking at it, a lot of people thought that they would be really good again, even myself. So now, with them being a little worse, they really cannot afford to have an injury bug because if the whole team gets decimated with injuries again, 6 wins, that could go drop down to 5 wins. That could drop. So that's a possibility. The 49ers need to just stay healthy. If they want to win 8 games, they need to be healthy for most of the year just so they can have some continuity, consistency, and a true opportunity to grow and develop. But we'll have to see, and things right now aren't looking great. So we'll have to follow that going into the regular season. Not very excited about it right now. And then, like I said earlier, storyline number 6, this team, I have them winning 8 games. It's not a big improvement, but that's okay. They just need to take a step in the right direction. They don't need to have an incredible bounce back year and make the playoffs. No, they don't need to do that. They just need to win more games than last year, show some improvement, and say, okay, yeah, the 49ers roster is not as good. They're retooling. But you know what? The team is getting better. The team is looking better. And by week 18, we can say, yeah, the 49ers, compared to 2024, have taken a step in the right direction. That's all I want to see. It's not a high bar to reach. I have faith in the coaching staff. I have faith in John Lynch. I have faith that this organization can get things back on track. And it doesn't have to be a big jump. As long as it's just a little bit better, that's all I'm looking for. That's all they really need. And if that's what they hit, then I will be talking about the 49ers in predictions versus reality and saying, hey, they did that. Okay, things are looking better. now with a lot of these rookies going to their second year, maybe we can start talking about the 49ers pushing to get into the playoffs again. So that's a conversation that could be very real very soon for the 49ers. So with that being said, that is going to do it for us for today's discussion. I hope you guys have enjoyed. And if you've made it this far, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe button. It helps the channel out tremendously. We're trying to reach 500 subscribers before the end of the 2025 regular season. So please get the word out and get people subscribed to the channel so we can continue building the community that we're trying to build over here. Also, where do you think the guys 49ers land? Do you think they win 8 games? Do you think they win more games and bounce back like they did in 2021? How do you think Brock Purdy does now he has a big contract? What do you think of Robert Saleh coming back? Let me know all your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Please do. I really want to hear what you guys have to say. And then thirdly, make sure you guys follow me on social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff, just continuing to grow the community that we're trying to grow. And then lastly, if you are a fan of one of these other teams in this 2025 season preview series, or a fan of one of these teams, go check out the 2025 preview series. I have every single team just about out right now. The entire AFC is done. NFC North, South, and East is done. The Cardinals is done. You're going to see this one, and then right after that, you're going to get the Rams and the Seahawks. So, we got 32 teams all breaking down for 2025. Highly recommend you go check them out. I love the breakdowns. They're all great. I thought I did a really good job with them. So please do go check them out. So with that being said, that is going to do it for this discussion today. I hope you guys sincerely have enjoyed. And as always, I will see you all next time.